Oh, okay. I see where the issue is. Okay, I have the fire extinguisher. Okay, coming out in 3, 2, 1. Okay, awesome. So glad that is cleared up. Okay, so for the past 25 years, Phoenixville, Pennsylvania has been hosting Blobfest, a small street fair and film festival in celebration of the 1958 sci-fi classic, The Blob. If you are unaware, Phoenixville is where much of the movie was filmed and the historical landmark of the Colonial Theater, where the movie's big climax starts before moving to a small diner. The event has been on my radar ever since James Rolfe talked about it on his website back in 2010, but this was the first year I really got a chance to get there, and it was the 25th anniversary of the festival itself. So this is going to be a little video about what all was there, how we enjoyed the event, and the things we learned for next year, followed by a breakdown of the 4 films that played at the festival this year for, funsies. As far as the event itself, Phoenixville isn't a big town. The street fair is the length of 2 medium-sized blocks with the street closed for vending tents and event attendees. The vendors were a really good variety of custom artists, vintage antiques and clothes dealers, small local businesses, beer, and my personal favorite, out-of-print or rare movie vendors. Live music was playing throughout the event. The footage behind me is me walking up and down the street, if that gives you a good indication of the size and what kind of the vibe is there. The Colonial Theater and the town also put on a horror and blob-themed variety show every year that culminates in a recreation of the scene of everyone running out of the theater. I will also talk about the variety show when I get to the little Blobathon we did, and unfortunately I didn't get a chance to stay for it this year. I will definitely try to be a part of the charity 5K in the future to talk about that as well, to see how that goes. I felt the event was run extremely professionally. All the event staff I talked to were informative and helpful. The Phoenixville residents who were just doing their jobs throughout the weekend were also equally kind, professional, and helpful everywhere. Despite every restaurant and bar in town being so packed, we had to have counters at just about every door to keep up with the occupancy requirements. The biggest things I would say to be prepared for are how crowded it is and the heat, both of things you would probably expect at an outdoor festival in the height of summer. But it peaked at 96 and it felt like 110 during my stay. That combined with the crowds made it kinda hard to sit down anywhere for any amount of times, but these are things I don't think the event can really plan for in any meaningful or significant way, so that's more on me and not planning well enough. I also was an idiot and didn't purchase event shirts the first night, so the shirt I'm wearing now is a size too big, and I missed out on just a Blobfest 25 shirt altogether. But that again is entirely on me. I'm just, angry at myself for that. Moving on to the Blobfest variety show that was presented by Baltimore-residing host Aurora Gorealis, with the band Beach Creeper playing in the background throughout. I don't know about the previous year's shows, but this year we were emphasizing throwing a party for the Blob instead of trying to kill it, so I'm guessing that's what shows in the past were focused on. Aurora Gorealis bounces in and out of the show with a few pre-recorded segments of her fun werewolf sidekick trying to get things together with the demon party planner, and musical numbers where, she would bring guests onto the stage and dance. There was also a short film competition in the Shorty shorts. I really wish Blobfest would post the winners, or maybe they did and I just missed them somewhere. If they're there, if you know where they are, please let me know, because I cannot remember them all. One of them was entered by school students. It was set up as a police interview with the Blob in a trench coat. It was really cute. The one I do remember a little more vividly was Godzilla vs. the Blob. That is available on YouTube and is only a couple of minutes long. It's also pretty self-explanatory, so if that is a self-view, then there is a link in the description. It's really crude but fun. They made a thing, and if you think you can do better, I challenge you to do so. But I think that's everything Blobfest put on besides the actual movies, so let's get to those, starting with 1958's The Blob. So did you know Steve McQueen's smoking habit was so bad during filming, he'd hold a lit cigarette behind his back during scenes? You can actually sometimes see the smoke behind him if you look for it in this classic alien invasion sci-fi horror movie about a meteor filled with a living acidic tidal monster that just exists to consume everything with meat and blood, while the least suspicious teenagers have the best first date, doing their best to convince cops and the neighbors that there is a real imminent danger. The words that have always surrounded the Blob are generally camp and schlock, which, yes, there is that, but the script is really witty with strong characters, especially that in the leads of Steve and Julie. Julie is both smart and assertive throughout, while Steve is equally so and immediately supportive in a way that is unexpected of movies of this era. And while I've seen this movie many times before, getting to watch it in the Colonial Theater, the real filming location of the movie with the most enthusiastic audience you can imagine, is a whole other experience. 4 out of 5 of the shows were entirely sold out apparently, and everyone was filled with cheering and an audience singing along with the best opening theme to exist in motion pictures.
Beware of the blob, it creeps and leaps and
The 1988 Blob remake. So if you do want to make solidified blob crystals at home, it's just rock salt dyed purple, and I love easy, manageable visual effects like that. This remake keeps that core structure of the original story, the titular monster crash landing in a small town with the sole purpose of consumption, while the local youths have the worst first date trying to convince the cops and the townsfolk that there is danger. Here the remake does its best to scrub all of the unintentional camp of that original production while rounding out the minor cast, giving us more time to love or absolutely hate characters before they ultimately get got. The story takes subtle twists at every major juncture of the story to both keep the movie's themes more contemporary as well as constantly engaging. Again, got to watch this at the Colonial with the most enthusiastic and entertaining crowd you can imagine. When there were some minor issues with the production, audience members dressed in CDC costumes mucked about on stage and had fun. While I love watching this at home, at Blobfest it was like an actual experience. 1972's Beware the Blob. I know it's not, but watching this back-to-back with the remake could almost be a sequel to Beware the Blob, like with the original movie being shown as a piece of fiction in this movie, the Blob being known by the government, and Del Close showing up in a brief moment as hobo with an eye patch. Who knows? Maybe the hobo miraculously survived and, became the Reverend here. Beware the Blob, as far as its story goes, is second verse, same as the first, a little bit louder and a whole lot worse. It's about the gloopy title monster terrorizing a small town and a young couple trying to warn everyone. The biggest changes being the titular Blob is just found in some dude's fridge and, being completely devoid of charm. That's not true. And there is charm in the long, slow sequences and insanely odd performances wrapped around the improvised sequences.
I don't cut hair, I sculpt it.
And I personally like how this Blob moves more than in the original. It's a little more fluid in scenes where it's rolling across a wide range, but Bobby is no Steve, and a bowling alley is no Colonial Theater. My biggest regret of Blobfest is not getting to see this in theaters to be riffed live with an enthusiastic audience. But I didn't even know this was a want until it was too late for me to get tickets. I'm very, very glad I got to rewatch it at home though. Despite everything I don't love about Son of Blob, its quirks have grown on me in the years since I last watched it. 1954's Creature from the Black Lagoon. It's science versus capitalism when a scientific expedition through the Amazon turns into a slow burn horror story of a cast being stalked by the titular creature. Oh, and we have a purty lady on board and everyone is pretty horny for her, especially the creature. Now, Black Lagoon uses a pretty basic plot structure, but in turn gives us smart, well-rounded characters, mostly. Exceptionally beautiful cinematography and great slow burn scenes of building tension as the creature does the stalking. There is a weird power dynamic and a very choreographed B-plot romance, but everyone appears to be enthusiastic in giving consent, so yay for that, I guess. Outside of that, the character of Kay Lawrence really is a strongly written character, and the creature costume and sequences are truly stunning as ever. And again, while we didn't get to see this one in theaters for Blobfest, it's that really smart writing and that campy but earnest feel that does make it an amazing way to cap off the film festival. Glad I watched it at home. So yeah, that was my experience with 2024's Blobfest 25. I really had a good time at the event, even if I felt like I missed out on a fair bit because I didn't plan well enough. We are already getting things booked for next year, and fingers crossed, maybe I can get a Shorty short into the event myself. So the next few things coming out are going to be more of me talking about my Letterboxd diary and what we watched last week. After that, I think is going to be a bunch more nerd fun with a big discussion around Detective Comics.